Well, you may guess it, but I'm fired up. I'm fired up about our community. Do you know that this fall we advertised 10 small groups that were starting up and getting launched? They meet, most of them meet about twice a month. Some meet once a month. Some meet more often. We have over 100 adults, and we now have some teens and young adults participating in those groups. Others, not counted in that 120, serve regularly in things like the choir or Soup to Go or Sunday school teaching teams that help them build community in a regular way. Did you know that our middle school program alone has 8 small groups and 18, and that number's rising, of small group leaders that include high school students and adults? Suddenly, our high schoolers think it's really cool to lead our middle school group. And so some groups have 3 high schoolers as leaders in those middle school groups. We have groups everywhere. And these groups are part of what helps us be experienced as a warm community. We learned in California a week ago that being a warm church is one of 6 values of growing churches across the country in the research that the Fuller Youth Institute conducted. This wasn't just churches that had young people. This was churches that were just plain growing. And so we left with this understanding that growing warm is something we need to pay attention to. Of course, as I was preparing for this sermon, I couldn't help but think of the old sitcom Cheers. And I was just thinking about the theme song that says, "Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name." And so I thought, wouldn't that be great if church was a place where you sort of felt like everybody knew your name? That's why you're wearing stickers today. Why not start there in this journey towards warmth? Now, Fuller Youth Institute did some other research, and they quoted some young people about what it means to be in a warm community, what it means to have a church that they feel is warm. And one young person said, "It was the life shared among the congregation that drew them in." Another one said, "This is life. It's not just church life, it's life. It's hard, it's busy, but we're in it together. We're like family." And family was a word that came up over and over again in these churches that were growing. There's something familial about it. There's something that's the best sense of family about it. Last week, Pastor Phil shared something else we learned in California, that the church is calibrated for a world that no longer exists. And there's a lot to say about that, but I want to take it one step further. I believe that many of the institutions that sort of are bedrocks in our society are calibrated for a world that no longer exists. And there's a huge ripple effect regarding this. But one of them, of course, social media is involved, the internet is involved. One of them is a movement towards isolation. One emerging adult said in this study, "The internet can't help you move to your new apartment. Only a close community will do that." We also talked about in California the biggest challenge to a warm community, and they called this the hungry beast. Let me describe the hungry beast to you and see if you have an idea of what I'm talking about. The hungry beast is the enemy of the warm community. The hungry beast tells you that you do not have the time or the energy to invest in your God community, that all you can do is take what you can and move on with your day. The hungry beast is the thing that devours your time and your brain space. For teens, it's the SATs, the PSATs, it's the tutor, the extracurriculars, the that you're attending. For your parents, it's those same things that they're driving you to. In my life stage as a young mom, it's having a 2-income household. It's the childcare, it's the laundry, it's the bills, it's the paperwork, it's the laundry. It's the lawn that still needs to be mowed. It's the extended family that needs our time. And it's the friend that needs you. It's not all bad, you can tell. It's the text messages. It's the fact that you're available to your job even when you're not on the clock. It's the social media telling us that yet another terrible thing has happened in our world, and that we're not good people unless we invest ourselves 100% emotionally in each and every tragedy. Of course, not all these things are bad. Most of them, almost all of them, are good. So how could they possibly be a hungry beast? The problem is that the hungry beast calls us away from love. The hungry beast sucks the air out of our souls. The result is that we become cold. The warmth is edged out of us as individuals, and tangentially, it's edged out of our community. It's not that we don't want to be together. It's not that we don't want to invest. It's that we feel that we can't possibly. I believe that the church, our church included, is uniquely positioned to fight the hungry beast and to build meaningful connections that help us rise above. I'd like to turn to the church's beginning in Acts chapter 2, Carol read for us. I want to remind you about what's happening in this scene. This takes place very shortly after Jesus had died and was resurrected. This passage is about the people who touched Jesus' scars, who had heard Jesus speak, who witnessed the resurrection. The passage says a few things, and I want you to listen for a few key words in this passage. I want you to count how many times this passage uses the word together, and notice how many times they eat together, how many times they share. The believers studied what the apostles taught. They shared their lives together. They ate and prayed together. Everyone was amazed at what God was doing. They were amazed even when the apostles performed many wonders and signs. All the believers were together. They shared everything they had. They sold property and other things they owned. They gave to everyone who needed something. Every day they met together in the temple courtyard. They ate meals together in their homes. Their hearts were glad and sincere. They praised God. They were respected by all the people. Every day the Lord added to their group those who were being saved. The word together is 5 times. It's not rocket science. Not only that, but the word eat or ate is twice, and share and give is 3 times, and study is once. I mean, people, we know how to do this. We're good at this. And the results were beautiful. They had glad and sincere hearts. The hungry beast was not conquering them. There was something whole about how they were living and who they were becoming. They were respected by all the people outside of their community, not just within. They had a positive, we use the word witness sometimes, but people thought positively about what they were doing. There was something good. People could look in on that community and say, God is doing something with them. And finally, the Lord added to the group those that were being saved. They were growing, and they were amazed by it. It wasn't like it was all about strategy or some new program. It's just that they were together, and something dynamic was happening in their togetherness that drew people in. There was a fire that was burning, and people were coming to the warmth. They prioritized togetherness. Now, what makes the church different from the other communities that we participate in our lives and we value? The church is founded, and this is the founding of the church. The church is founded on God's love. This is the community that knew, because they had known Christ, that at the end of the day, God's love would win. They believed that with such conviction that they were not afraid to share that with their friend. When something terrible was happening, when something sad was going on, when they were losing people they loved, when they were stressed, when they were in hardship, when they didn't have food, they knew that God's love would win. God's love would conquer, and it compelled them. Now, the second passage I chose because it reminds me of Dan Ott. The second passage is in 1 Corinthians, and it's Paul writing to another early church, another part of the early church. And this is the most amazing thing that Paul says here. He says, "Because we loved you so much, we were delighted to share with you not only the gospel of God, but our lives as well." Church, we have a message of love and hope. We call that the gospel. But if we stop there and we don't strive to learn one another's names and to share life together, we fall short. And young people, emerging adults, but I would argue any age group will see through that kind of community. And they will say, the hungry beast will win. The hungry beast will convince them that they don't have time for this kind of thing. We have to put our love, God's love, out there in such a way that it can fight this hungry beast to the point where somebody will say, you know what? That's worth trying. Something is going on there. They've got some sort of special kind of love. Now, you don't have to be a youth leader to invest yourself in each other's lives. I want to share with you a quote by Laura Stanton, who attends our 11 o'clock service, and she's one of the people leading coffee hour at the 11 o'clock service. And she has a passion for coffee hour. You laugh, but what I'm about to read will mess with you. She says, so she asks the question, how does fellowship with one another after the service on Sunday morning deepen your relationships at UCC Medfield? She says, I would suggest in a big way. Time spent hearing what's on your mind, celebrating milestones, sharing a sadness, asking for help, talking about the kids or the Patriots shows our interest and commitment to one another. Talking is easier when you're breaking bread or cookies together. Can I get a head nod? That was a weak head nod, people. Give me a real head nod. Thank you, some of you. Others of you, I'm working on you. Here's the thing. Sharing our lives with one another doesn't have to be complicated. Sometimes it's just eating a cookie at coffee hour and talking about the Patriots. Everything starts somewhere. And when you invest in that time with that cookie and that person, not only are you fighting your hungry beast, but you are helping that other person fight his. We need each other to help us with this. This hungry beast is very powerful. Now, the church is uniquely set up to help us fight the hungry beast, because we are a community that is uniquely not just about bettering ourselves. I happen to be part of a gym that's very invested in community. But at the end of the day, everybody there is paying for that experience because we want to be in shape better than we were before. We don't come to that community because we want to help other people or we want to be part of a bigger story. That's different here. This community is not just about me being a better person or you being a better person. I think you're pretty much all convinced of that. We're a church on a mission. We're a church on the move. We're a church for others. And just about everything that we do is oriented in that direction. And we work extremely hard to make sure we have opportunities for everyone to experience what it's like to be part of God's redeeming work in the world. Now, I have spent this whole sermon in stewardship season without talking about money. But I think you know how this works out. When we truly invest our lives in one another, our wallets follow. I'd like you to take a minute and think about how the hungry beast controls your accounts. And what would it be like to fight back that hungry beast with this belief that God's love wins in the end? How does that change what we write checks to and how we allocate our money and our time? So I want to invite you to be part of this team to fight the hungry beast with me. I want to invite you to be part of the Spark Squad. The Spark Squad tries to learn names. The Spark Squad eats together as much as humanly possible. The Spark Squad shares everything that we can. The Spark Squad lets other people know, hey, if you need help moving, I've got a truck. The Spark Squad will talk and get to know the children that have prepared goodies for us today at coffee hour. The Spark Squad comes to coffee hour. Not only that, but the Spark Squad pushes themselves to not just talk to the people they know at coffee hour, but to look for the people that might be new or might be less connected. That's the call of the Spark Squad. And you know as well as I do, and yes, I'm going to get cheesy, it only takes a spark, people, to get a fire going, to warm up a space. But it takes all of us. So I'll leave you with this old song and pray that it becomes an earworm for you throughout this week. It only takes a spark to get a fire going. Sing with me if you know it. And soon all those around will warm up in its glowing. That's how it is with God's love. Once you've experienced it, you spread God's love to everyone you want to pass it on. Amen.